What's going on, guys? It's Jimmy here with your second stimulus check update. And in this video, we're going to talk about whether or not the president can do a presidential executive order to pass stimulus checks before the election. I've been doing a lot of research, and I'm going to tell you whether or not he can do a presidential executive order to pass these stimulus checks as they're working on the negotiations for the larger stimulus package. But first, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up down below. It really helps out our channel. And if you're new here, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on new videos. My wife and I do all the research for you every single day on the second stimulus check, the second stimulus package, and the election news. So make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on new videos. So the question at hand is, can President Donald Trump pass a stimulus check for at least $1,200 and a check for dependents this time around through a presidential executive order, as Congress, both Nancy Pelosi from the Democrats and Mitch MCConnell from the Republicans, have both been delaying the stimulus check negotiations, and we have not received a second stimulus check. Now, one of the main things we're going to be discussing is President Donald Trump did already do this once with the stimulus that he passed to the unemployed people of $300 to $400 per week. He did this through a executive order, and the Democrats said he couldn't do it, but he did it anyways. Now, as I said, I've been doing extensive research on whether or not he can do it again for a stimulus check this time around. And I'm going to show you some of the details, some of the articles I've read to whether or not he can do this. And well, to be honest, it's not a simple yes or no answer. It's a pretty gray area. Of course, critics say things like this. Former Secretary of Labor Robert Reich, who tweeted his take on the actions a day after the news was announced of his previous executive order to pass unemployment stimulus to people, he says, quote, "Your reminder that a president cannot spend taxpayer dollars by executive order," the tweet read. Reich later shared that same post on Facebook with the caption, "That's not how this works." Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle criticized President Donald Trump's move, as well as Senator Ben Sasse from Nebraska called the orders unconstitutional slop. And House Speaker Nancy Pelosi from California called them, quote, "illusions that don't even accomplish what he set them out to do." Well, of course, that was a few months ago, and if you've been paying attention, we all know what happened. The presidential executive orders did go through. The Democrats did not challenge it in court. They could have. They could have tried to challenge it in court, but, well, then the country would have seen that the Democrats were basically trying to prevent more money to go into unemployed people who lost money during this pandemic. And of course, while Republicans and Democrats keep saying that they care for us so much, that they really want to help us out during this pandemic. So the Democrats ultimately did not challenge it in court. The executive orders went through, and millions, tens of millions of people actually went on to receive $300 to $400 per week of unemployment bonus money for 6 weeks. It was $300 based on what the federal government provided, and a few states provided an extra $100 per week to make it $400 per week that the states chipped in the extra $100. This basically went on for at least 6 weeks. The vast majority of states got 6 weeks. Some states are still trying to figure out how to pay those last few weeks, even though the money came from the federal government, at least the $300 did. So everybody said President Donald Trump couldn't do it last time around, but yet he did do it. They did go through. Millions of Americans got the money, even though the Democrats said it was unconstitutional and cannot be done. As you can see here, the Constitution gives the power of spending money to Congress. The U.S. Constitution grants Congress the country's spending power. David Super, a constitutional law expert teaching at Georgetown University, said that means the president cannot spend money without congressional authorization, quote, "whether by executive order or presidential memorandum or anything else." However, Congress can provide money that is contingent on the president releasing it, in which case an executive order could release funds if that's what Congress called for, he said. In presidential spending discretion and congressional controls, Constitution expert Louis Fisher breaks down several examples of presidents exercising the power to decide what money goes where with contingency funds, sometimes in ways that weren't appropriated by Congress. In 1961, for example, President John F. Kennedy issued an executive order establishing the Peace Corps. The agency wasn't appropriated funding until 7 months later. But in the meantime, Kennedy financed the corps by using over $1 million in contingency funds from the Mutual Security Act. But the lines have been blurred before. It's happened recently with the funding for President Donald Trump's border wall. Congress, in various defense and national security statutes, has given the president a fair amount of authority to shift things around. There is fairly broad authority, specifically in national security statutes, to allow responding to fast changing war conditions. And Trump used that to build a border wall, which isn't really a military thing, and that's why there has been litigation about it. I think people have the notion that the president can push things around because of that. From the previous executive order, Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin said, quote, if the Democrats want to challenge us in court and hold up unemployment benefits to those hardworking Americans that are out of a job because of this pandemic, they are going to have a lot of explaining to do. Now, if this action is not challenged, it might set a precedent that makes the role of the president more powerful in the future. Now, because of this pandemic, President Donald Trump has declared this a national emergency over this virus. Initial reports after he declared this a national emergency was that it freed up as much as $50 billion in financial resources to effort states and U.S. territories to assist Americans in the outbreak. And there's actually very many surprising things that the president can do during a national crisis, such as regulate all commerce and business transactions, seize all privately held gold, take control of all media in the United States, basically capture all resources and manpower, deploy the military inside the United States, which the president said he wants to do to distribute the vaccines when they're ready. And number six is actually suspend the government of the United States of America if he wanted to. So the reality of it is, because we're in a national emergency declared by the president, he has a lot more powers than he wouldn't have otherwise. And the main interesting point is President Donald Trump has also said that there's $300 billion sitting there in a fund that has been already approved by Congress from the first stimulus package. It's already been approved and it's sitting there unspent. We've also since heard that there's over $100 billion sitting there of unused PPP funds, Paycheck Protection Program funds, that was supposed to go to small businesses. And there's also hundreds of billions of dollars sitting there in the Main Street Lending Program and the Treasury. In total, there's almost $800 billion sitting there that has already been approved by the 4 stimulus packages that have already been passed that hasn't been spent. So the real question is, can the president pass a stimulus check through a presidential executive order? And from my research, it's a very gray area, but I think he could do it. And here's what would happen. He passes the presidential executive order just like he did with the unemployment executive order that basically paid millions and millions of Americans thousands of dollars for being unemployed, money that was already approved by Congress and was sitting in the disaster relief fund. And he basically just shifted it over to basically give unemployment checks. I think he could do the exact same thing with that $300 billion that's sitting there from the first stimulus package. He could just reappropriate that just like he did the previous executive order to pass a second stimulus check. Now, again, it's a gray area and many experts disagree. In fact, a lot of people say that he couldn't have done the first one, but he's now kind of set a precedent now that he did it once already. And the Democrats said that he couldn't do it. And even after he did it, they said he couldn't do it. but they didn't challenge it in court. Because they didn't challenge it, everybody got their money. So I think the exact same thing could happen. The Democrats can say that he can't do it and he shouldn't do it, but he could do it anyways. And then the Democrats would be sitting here right before the election saying, am I actually going to really challenge a presidential executive order for stimulus checks during a national emergency, during a pandemic, and prevent all these people, millions, hundreds of millions of Americans, from getting a stimulus check right now as they've been waiting months for a second one? I don't think the Democrats will do it. I didn't think they were going to challenge the previous one, and they didn't. I don't think they challenge it again. So the question is, do you think President Donald Trump can pass a stimulus check through a presidential executive order? And do you think he will do it before the election now that we're about 10 days away? Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe down below so you don't miss out on new video updates regarding the second stimulus check and the election. And click the share button down below and share this video on Facebook with your family and friends so that everybody can be in the know about what is going on with the second stimulus check. I will keep you guys updated. You can click on this top video here to watch my newest stimulus check video next. And this video teaches you how to start a business selling products on Amazon FBA. I have students that have replaced their entire 9-to-5 income by selling products on Amazon, and I teach them how to do that. Click on one of those videos to watch them next. Thanks, guys, and I will see you in the next video.